I listened to Linkin Park. Am I cooler than I think I was?
I mean, I've always thought you were very cool, Michael.
Oh my
Like,
God, thanks.
Michael's like, oh my God, I am into metal.
Little did I know I'm so much more hardcore than I thought. Hello.
Welcome back.
Welcome back
Hi,
to
Michelle.
Whyte Noise with my dear friend Michelle. Hello.
hello, everybody. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for joining us. So, quick recap. Michelle, I know because Michelle's been friends with my sister Allison for a very long time.
Very long time.
When you guys used to live in the same building and your dogs became best friends.
Yes, we met through our dogs, and they have very good taste.
Yes, and brought us all together. And then
Yes.
for years, we used to have dinner once a week and every Tuesday night and watch Jeopardy
And then Jeopardy first, and then trash TV afterwards.
and then Trash TV. And you and
Yes.
Allison took turns making dinner and would sneak onions into the food and not tell me.
Oh yeah, that was her idea, though.
Oh, why?
I hate onions and
And
typical
she was
big sister
so
fashion.
sure you would not notice them.
Half the time I didn't notice them, to be fair. And then she'd be like, gotcha.
I didn't know this was a thing.
Oh, it was such a thing.
Do you know my biscuits and gravy actually has onions?
Does it really?
No, but
Oh. Why do I fall for everything you say? He does this to me like almost every episode at some point.
Oh my goodness, but you're gonna give him trust issues. It's not healthy.
I was going to say, if we haven't pulled that off yet, I might still be okay for a while.
I mean, Allison with the onions. I mean, like this gonna like I'm an older sibling, but like he's a younger sibling. Like he's gonna have trust issues off the bat. 'Cause, like,
And yet I still believe everything. She used to make me eat dirt and told me it was God's chocolate. She told me if I ran down the street naked, I'd be able to fly. Did it. Did not fly. Needless
Did
to
not
say, that was a
fly.
real bummer of a day for me.
Was it though? That sounds amazing.
I mean, it was warm. I ran around naked. So that's not the worst thing when I think I was like 4.
You know, like,
But I was really devastated that I couldn't fly like Mary Poppins by the time I hit the end of the block.
Mary Poppins. Well, I mean, I guess I should be grateful that my older one is not making my younger one run naked through the neighborhood. So there's
Yeah,
something.
your kids actually
Oh.
seem to like each other.
This summer they did for the most part.
So that's a little bit about our history. So we were talking about your history
Oh,
of
how I
music.
got into
though.
music?
How you
Yeah.
got into
Yeah.
music.
Yes. So really, okay. So how I first got into music was my first boyfriend when I was 14. He was a little bit older, and it was the 90s. So he was listening to Limp Bizkit, and Limp Bizkit's first album was a lot grittier and like harder than their later ones were. And at first I was like, I don't know, this is a little crazy. But then after a little bit, I was like, oh no, this is really good. And like, this is gonna be my thing too. Like, this is great. And then my first concert ever was Lollapalooza. And don't quote me on the year, but I think it was 1994. And I'm pretty sure that was the year that Tool was there with Korn, and it was an amazing show. It was amazing, and that after that I was sold. Like, but Lollapalooza used to be at Randall's Island. I don't know if it still is, but there were 2 stages, and the main stage it was all outdoors and it was all dirt. So when the mosh pit would start, like there were just these dirt clouds everywhere, and I will never forget going home like hours later, exhausted, filthy, good, gross, but I was 14, I didn't care, and blowing my nose and just like black stuff coming out of my nose because all the
Oh.
dust I had inhaled all day
Oh.
long. I was just like, oh, that's probably not good.
From just inhaling dust at Lollapalooza.
Yeah, from mosh pit to
Ew.
Lollapalooza. Yeah,
Gross.
yeah, but I didn't. But after that, I went to a lot of shows as a kid, and there were always rock or metal shows or new metal shows or whatever. And then my first non-metal show was with Allison. We went to go see Pink together, and then a little while later we saw Lady Gaga. And those, I mean,
Nice.
they were amazing. But I mean, I listen to a lot of different kinds of music, but that's rock and metal is always my default.
Since that is our topic today, which I don't think we said. So then
Oh.
that
Congratulations, everyone.
now this all makes sense.
The topping happens to be that thing we've been talking about.
It's fascinating. I feel like that was like one genre that I never really listened to because I was such a nerd. So like
Same.
it always was like I was listening to show tunes. And so compared to like, Carol Channing and Sutton Foster, like metal was so the other end of the spectrum that it was just like, what is this?
I guess I wouldn't have been allowed to listen to metal growing up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my dad liked Zeppelin, which was like pre-metal.
Yep.
Like I've talked about this on the podcast before, and like anything, because my mom was a teacher, and anything that she associated with like not great students were like things that we were not allowed to do.
Oh, that makes sense. Yep.
Yeah, it was like not even it was never on my radar just because I was never, I think, ever put in a place to be around it, which is like unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm sure my mom didn't love it, but she was okay with it. And I'm a teacher too, which is interesting. But so like I'll let my kids listen to it. And they know, so I've taught them what the bad words are, so they know which ones not to repeat. I was like, you can listen to them, but you can't repeat them. They're like, okay, but they listen to metal and they'll listen to like some show tune stuff too. Like I forget what Karen's listening to right now, but it's totally kid. The show itself is very kid inappropriate, but the soundtrack is like, oh, it has been Hotel, but the soundtrack is like a musical basically, and he
Oh,
loves it,
cool.
and Lachlan loves it too. And I was like, okay, and you know they can't watch the show because the show is not for children, but the music is it's fine, and they're very so we try to have a good variety, even though rock and metal is my default.
I had this boss that I was really close with at work, and you know the little John song, and East Side Boys. Is it Ah Skeet Skeet? Is the name of the song?
I don't know if that's the name of the song, but
From
I
the
know it's like
windows to the
To the
walls.
wow, yes.
Yeah, so my boss and I were walking around the office, just kind of like generic, as if it was some sort of like exclamation, like we'd be like skeet skeet, and he'd be like skeet skeet, and we'd just be saying this openly in office, and then finally my good friend Liz grabs me and pulls me aside, and she goes, "You know what you're saying, you dumbass, right?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "What does skeet skeet mean?" And she's like, "Ryan, it's like skeet skeet." And I was like, oh. And I
Oh,
go into my boss's office and I'm like, "Hey, Lou." I was like, "Do you know what we're actually saying?" He's like, "No."
Oh, bless. You guys were accidentally an HR nightmare.
Yeah, and this is like in my mid-20s. This dude's in like his like late 30s, early 40s at this point. Like, what idiots.
but if you don't know, you don't know. I mean,
I appreciate that you've put your sons in a position to not run around and yell skeet skeet everywhere.
yes, I please don't. And there's gonna be like there's gonna be new things that I don't know, but like I teach in a middle school, so like I have to think if I hear my students
I
say
would say you're
something
probably pretty up
new,
to speed.
I have to like ask like the good kids, like what does that mean? You know, so the kids that I know will tell me the truth, or like or some of my other teacher friends will like we'll be texting in the middle of the day like okay, so and so saying this. Do we know what it means? I was like, I don't know what it means. Can you search it up? I was like, well, and then one of us will like text our teenage kids, like ask them what it means.
All right, so speaking of metal, we each have in theory prepared some things. Michelle,
In theory.
who would you like to hear go first?
I guess Ryan can go first.
Okay.
Yay!
Okay, that's the right answer. So this confirms my suspicion that it's in theory that we prepared things. Because Michael was way too excited to have some extra time.
I love when Ryan goes first.
Michael will be looking down a lot because he'll be jotting notes as we go.
I'm going to be Googling everything Ryan says. All right, are you ready, Ryan?
Yeah, hold on one second. I want to find one before. Okay. Yes, now I am because I was like, I kind of like how I made my way into it. But yes, now I'm ready.
Okay, and go.
Okay, so as I obviously exposed, I did not have a lot of exposure to like metal growing up. And like, I would say the closest I got to rocker, my like rock genre when I was in like in middle school and into high school was the hardest I got was like Oasis. And I do remember like my first real rock concert was seeing Oasis, and it was the last concert that they did in the United States before they had the really big breakup
Oh
in
wow.
in 96. And I recalled that I thought they broke up on stage, but actually they didn't. They broke up post that concert. After that, like the only thing that I could come up with that like was the closest thing that I could get to rock or metal was the Osbournes, which
Oh
was
yeah.
Ozzy Osbourne and like his whole, the whole reality kind of TV jam. But what I didn't realize, and in terms of doing my research, is that Sabbath is the origin of metal. Like, there was not metal prior to Sabbath. You had a lot of like rock bands in the 60s, which were the precursors to metal. So you had Deep Purple and Zeppelin. But Sabbath was in the 70s kind of set the kind of darker tones. So like your original like hard rock was actually more happy. Like it was about like drug trips and cars and love and whatever else, where like metal was dark and intended to be dark. But I thought was kind of interesting. And so, you were telling me like Korn and Limp Bizkit. So I have the whole like, how did we get to Korn and Limp Bizkit? So what is because if Sabbath was the beginning, how did we get to where we are today? And what were the bands that kind of chart the space? I thought this was cool. So in the 70s and 80s from Sabbath, you actually then had the trunk. So it was the same sort of style of music. You had Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, and then even Ozzy's solo career.
Yeah.
And then into the 80s and 90s, you get trash metal. I'm sorry, thrash metal, not trash. I guess it depends on how you feel about it.
Yeah.
The trash metal didn't make it.
There might be some people who feel that way about this branch of the metal. But thrash metal was like Metallica, Slayer, and Megadeth, and then you had Glam and Hair, which I feel like a majority of people know, which is Motley Crue, Poison, Def Leppard. And then actually some of the other branches were like Speed and Power. So I didn't know Halloween or Dragon Force, and then death metal, which was Morbid Angel. And then get this one, Cannibal Corpse. Does anyone know Cannibal?
Yes.
Do you know Cannibal Corpse?
So I don't, they're not on my playlist, but yes, I definitely know of them. They're like really famous bands.
And then into the 90s and 2000s is where we get into new metal. And that's where we get our Korns, our Limp Bizkits, and even Linkin Park.
I listened to Linkin Park. Am I cooler than I think I was?
I mean, I've always thought you were very cool, Michael.
Oh my God, thanks.
Michael's like, oh my God, I am into metal.
Little did I know I'm so much more hardcore than I thought.
I mean, I liked Linkin Park too, but I feel like that's because it made Casey Kasem's top 20 countdown on Sundays.
Yeah, it was much more mainstream.
I was gonna say the other like alt metal, like you had Tool, System of a Down, and even Deftones, and then what else do we have? And then metalcore and deathcore, which I did recognize Killswitch Engage, like that band I did recognize.
What are they under? Metalcore?
Yeah, they're on metalcore.
Okay. So I feel like that some of their songs sound very different from others. So it's always interesting to me like how bands get categorized, because they'll have different tracks that sound, some bands have a very distinct sound, like Deftones. Like, it's Deftones before it even like gets a few seconds in.
As soon as they come on, you're like, oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or like Tool. As soon as it comes on, like, oh, that's gotta be a Tool song, definitely. But like other bands like Killswitch, I feel like a lot of difference.
And they also listed Whitechapel, and Whitechapel I remember too as a band.
I don't remember
like,
that one.
I didn't listen to them at all. But yeah, that's kind of like how we got from the origins of Sabbath to where we are today in terms of like metal bands. But so I decided to then do a little bit of a tribute to Ozzy himself, because I think most people know he passed away in the previous like couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I loved him, and I love the family from the Osbournes. So it was kind of fun to just learn a bit more about him. He was born in 1948 in Birmingham, England. His actual name is John Michael Osbourne, but Ozzy stuck as a nickname. He was dyslexic, terrible at academics, and bullied, and dropped out of school at 15, and then infamously went to jail for stealing things, but got caught because a pair of the gloves that he stole, he chose to write his name on the inside of them, so they knew they were the stolen gloves. And then, like, they're not mine. And then they looked and they're like, "No, you wrote your name on them, buddy."
Ozzy.
Oh, poor Ozzy. And then I know that metal kind of got a lot of its, like, what it was known for from the crazy behaviors, right? So it wasn't even just the lyrics and the sound, it was the behavior on stage and off stage that kind of, parlayed into That's phenomenal stories through
Yeah, he
time.
lived up to the Prince of Darkness. Oh yeah, all the crazy stories.
So did you know that? So the bat incident is obviously one of the most infamous ones. And I did not know this, but apparently he didn't think it was a bat. He thought it was like a rubber toy. He thought it was a rubber bat toy. And that's why he went to go bite the head off of it. He had no idea.
Can you imagine the surprise?
And he had to get rabies shots after.
Yeah, I would assume so.
I mean, being Ozzy, he probably would not have actually needed the rabies shots because he seemed to outlive anything that went into his body. But
what a gnarly surprise. Like, I will say, going to bite what you think is a rubber bat and then it's real sounds like a worse surprise than biting into a casserole and finding out there's onions. But they're very close.
I love how onions are your bat. That's
oh my gosh.
Did you know he had another head biting off incident, but this one was very purposeful and intentional?
Was it a bird?
Yeah, so
okay,
he went
so
into
okay.
he had doves and walked into like recording, like to get signed, like meet with recording execs to sign up, sign with a label or something like that. And he like apparently pulls out 2 doves in his hands, and everyone in the room just continued to ignore him. So he just decided to bite the head off of one of them. And apparently it freaked out all the execs, but they signed him.
But like, that's very different from accidentally biting off a bat's head. Like, now you know. Well, maybe he was like, well, it can't taste any worse than the bat. So.
Oof. Now I'm just wondering, like, would you let him dog sit for you? Like,
how small is the dog?
Actually, he loves dogs. Did you know this? This is like one of his things.
The Osbournes.
Oh, he loves dogs. Yeah, like this is like it's one of his favorite things. I was gonna say everything you read that, like, aside from what was very clearly, I think, alcohol and drug fueled behavior, he's apparently like a super softie, very goofy and extremely self-deprecating, and is just well known for like loving dogs. Although I feel like Sharon, I have a little bit on Sharon too, because I feel like Sharon is such an important piece of the story. She really is kind of what built him into the legend that he was. So like Sabbath was its own thing, but he didn't stay in Sabbath. He was kicked out for his drug use. And Sharon was the daughter of Don Arden, who is the manager of Sabbath. So she actually stepped in to manage his solo career. And she's the one that really rebuilt him. Although, from there, I forget when they got married. They got married in 1982. But as you'd imagine, like they had a typical kind of like rocker sort of relationship. Like he strangled her in 1989 in a alcohol fueled blackout rage, didn't remember it. And then I guess the last thing I'll share is that in 2016, I think the affair was really public, where he was having an affair with his hairdresser. And she left him for a bit, but ultimately, said he's the true love of my life. He went and got, I don't know how old he was, 1948 minus 2016. He went for a sex addiction. He went to therapy for sex addiction off of 2016. And I'm like, how old was he? He was 52 plus 16. So he was almost 70 years old and still like, he was a randy boy.
There's pills for that, so.
It'll probably work better than the rest of him.
Also, wasn't it amazing how you couldn't understand a fucking word coming out of his mouth, but the moment the man starts to sing, you were like, it's an angel.
Yep. I actually went to Ozfest a couple times, and I remember he was an old man at that point too, but he had this like Home Depot size like buckets of water, and he was running back and forth on stage like dumping water on the crowd. It was so hot. And I was like, how is he doing that? But drugs, I'm sure. But like,
cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Yeah. And he's like hobbling, because he's like, he's ancient, he's like hobbled over and like, taking like half steps, but he's doing it. He's like got this bucket of water and throwing it on people.
Are you ready, Michael?
I am, I think. It's going to be great. Don't you worry, Michelle.
I'm not worried. But I do know the feeling being a teacher and being like, oh crap, did I plan out this lesson or not? Like, guess what, kids? We're going to wing it today.
Okay, yes. Tell me when.
And go.
First of all, real quick side note, when you talked about like with the kids being like, don't repeat these words, but here's this cool thing.
Uh-huh.
Side note, nothing to do with metal, but it made me think of when I was a kid, my mom introduced me to the movie Blazing Saddles
Uh-huh.
when I was 8,
Oh, great
forgetting
movie.
I don't know if you know this movie by Mel Brooks, but it's like the language is like next level. And she was like, this is a really funny movie. Repeat none of this, but let me watch it. Every other word, she's like, oh, I forgot about that. Oh, forgot about that one. Oh, and that one. But she was like, well, they already said it. Okay, back to metal. So I'm so glad that Ryan took us on a history of metal because I am not going to. What I ended up on was learning about this specific band from Norway called Mayhem. Do you know them,
Oh,
Michelle?
I do not. No.
Rings a bell.
Did you? So I had never heard of them, but I came across the story and I was like, this feels kind of wild and appropriate for like how dark things are as just a crazy band in history. So Mayhem was founded in 1984 by this guitarist.
They're black metal.
Black metal. Is that different from death
They're
metal?
black metal. Actually, yeah, it is. So I didn't bring it up because you have black metal. Whatever reason I skipped over it. Black metal, which is Venom, Mayhem, and Emperor.
Yeah. So Venom is like what I learned. Venom is like the cornerstone of these guys. Like they were really inspired by Venom, which I guess within their subgenre of metal, Venom was like the band. And so they predated them. So Mayhem. So hopefully this is still applicable for the topic. I guess I wasn't sure if there's a difference between black and death metal. So yeah, they were really inspired by, though they say Black Sabbath as well, and Venom and Motorhead were the bands that they were like most in love with. So it's founded by this guitarist, Ustid Arsif, also known as Euronymous. And we're going to call him Euronymous from here on out because I don't know how to pronounce anything Norwegian. I highly doubt I said that name correctly.
I wouldn't know the difference. I would not know the difference.
Ustid Arsif, also known as Euronymous. So he founded the band with a bassist and a vocalist and a drummer.
Okay.
They started Mayhem. It was based on the song Mayhem and Mercy by Venom. They in Norway, they sort of started to find their way in the scene. It took them a few lead singers before they really found their sound. They finally made their first album. It did okay. And then they got rid of that lead singer and replaced the vocalist with this guy, Per Yngen Olin. Also known as Dead, quote unquote, and that was his nickname. And then they also replaced the drummer with a guy whose nickname, his name was John Axel Blomberg, also known as Hellhammer. They all had really fun, nicknames. So Dead was actually a Swedish singer, who had started his own band. They only got as far as making one demo album. It didn't really go anywhere. He loved Mayhem and really wanted to sing with them. So he sent them, as they claim, a box with the demo from his band, a letter with like this long letter about like his dreams and goals for the future and how he wants to join the band and, how he views the future of metal, and then a decomposing dead rat. They were like, well, the rat was weird, but the sound was great. I think even for a metal band at the time, they were like, the rat's a bit much, but like, whatever, we really like the way you sing. His sound was amazing, and his sound really helped launch them, but also so did his like deep depression. He really leaned into the dark side of metal because it turns out he was like severely depressed, and he wrote a lot of the lyrics, and the lyrics felt very like true and genuine, and they became really popular because he was writing from a real place of like trying to, I think, process like his pain. And Euronymous is not a great guy. So Euronymous is still the head of the band. He's the lead guitar player. He's running their business side. He got really into Dead's sort of self-hatred, and he would egg him on to like hurt himself on stage. The self-harm thing became like a part of their brand, and he loved that was part of their image. And he really pushed like Dead's depression to try and get more lyrics out of him. He encouraged behavior like Dead would sleep with dead birds under his bed so he could smell death as he slept. Because the band all lived together. Yeah, he would push this sort of like insane behavior. And then but they also really didn't like each other, was the weird thing is.
Clearly not.
He also really disliked him as a person. And the band said it was actually really difficult because they were constantly fighting. The energy behind like off stage was really turbulent.
Mm-hmm.
The more they worked together, they became more successful, but Dead became more and more depressed. Eventually, in, I believe it was 1991, they were living in this like small house in the woods in Norway. Things got really bad. The band went out. Dead was left alone, and he shot himself. He left this weird note that just said, "Excuse the blood." And then this other, like, they found written down odd statements like, "I belong in the woods and have always done so. No one will understand the reason for this anyway. To give some semblance of an explanation, I'm not a human. This is just a dream, and soon I will awake." Yeah, he was in a really bad place, this poor kid. And he
Yeah.
was young, he was in his
Yeah.
20s. And so Dead happened to be, or Euronymous happened to be the one who came home and found him, unfortunately. Euronymous, thrilled. He called another band member and he was like, wait, what's the exact quote? It was something like, "Dude, this is so cool. He killed himself."
Oh my
Dead
God.
has done something really cool. He killed himself. And the bandmate was like,
Oh.
"I'm out of here." So Dead, or Euronymous, before calling the authorities, he was so excited that Dead had killed himself. He went to a local store, bought a camera, and this is like mid 80s, but got like a disposable camera, came back and took pictures of Dead's body and like posed him, kept them, and he wanted to use them as a publicity stunt.
Of course.
So of course they replaced him with another singer. He took Dead's death and used it as a giant publicity move. It made the band more popular than ever, even though he would knock commercialism. Like he was like, no, this should stay a subgenre. Like this should be niche. And he felt it was like really elite. He was like, only 20 or 30 people deserve to hear our albums. Everyone else are idiots.
How are you going to make any money?
but also like to make money. So he's just like a really shitty dude. So poor Dead's dead. Mayhem is now bigger than ever. Euronymous goes on to open a record shop. And then also, that's also where he based the label out of. He's producing records. He's doing pretty well. So he brings in a new lead singer, this guy, Varg Vikernes, also known as Count Grishnach. And he is also a little crazy. And unfortunately, too, Euronymous at this point has sort of established himself as like the leader of like the black and death metal scene in Norway. And he had this sort of like cult status as like the father of this. And he would set this like insane rules, and he was hardcore into Satanism. And like his thing was like, you had to be like into Satanism. He had all these really set rules. But the problem is, the bigger he got, the more it was like, some people saw him as like a cult leader and some people just saw him as like an egomaniac.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like a cult leader. Yeah.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for him, Varg was one of the ones who like at first was like totally on board and would go do crazy things like burn down churches. He like took the movement to the streets, which I guess Euronymous was like, going too far, going too far. And that's when Varg was like, then you don't really believe in your message, because you're preaching all this stuff and now I'm going out and actually doing it. And now you're telling me it's too much. And then Varg started to get all paranoid and was like, oh, you're going to try and kill me because you glorify death so much and now you don't like me. Thinking, and again, I think there were a lot of drugs involved, and I don't know how far I am in my 10 minutes, but to kind of make a long story short,
You're fine.
Varg decided to get like one step ahead of Euronymous, and he drives one day. He was somewhere else. He said it was a 500-kilometer drive to go to Euronymous' house to confront him. And then he felt like Euronymous was threatening him and said that he had the gun that Dead shot himself with in the house and like not to mess with him. They get in this big fight and he ends up stabbing him. I want to say Varg ends up stabbing Euronymous. I believe it was 26 times.
Oh my God.
Like an insane, like stabs the absolute, quite literally the absolute hell out of him. He's stabbed in 23 stab wounds, 2 to the head, 5 to the neck, and 16 to the back.
I assume he didn't live.
He did not live. And that's how the story ends.
Oh my God.
But yeah, it's crazy. Like Varg ended up getting sentenced to 21 years in prison. He had no remorse because he was a coward. He tried to run away, which was a coward's move, which just proved to me that he doesn't believe in the movement. He didn't die like a hero the way like somebody of his status should have. Like I watched an interview with Varg where he's very just sort of like, yeah, he did. Like he's weirdly fine with what he did.
Wow.
And he's like, well, he was going to kill me first. And if I didn't kill him, eventually he was going to kill me. I guess he had threatened to torture him, kill him, and like videotape the whole thing for the sake of the movement.
I got the, if you want to hear it, I got what the difference between death and black metal is.
Ooh, yeah.
Okay.
Actually, it was, I'm just going to give you the full rundown on each. So death metal, its birthplace was in the mid 80s in Florida, which go figure from Florida. But the sound is growled, guttural. It says, think Cookie Monster. Low, heavy guitar tone, lots of down tuning, complex riffs, blast beat drumming, technical brutality. Themes are gore, violence, horror. Think like grade B movie spatter. And the vibe is like brutal, physical, meant to overwhelm you with sheer heaviness. Black metal, birthplaces in Norway, 90s in the Norway. The sound is high-pitched, shrieked vocals, less growl, more banshee, thin, tremolo-picked guitars, lo-fi raw production on purpose. The themes are Satanism, anti-Christianity, paganism, nature, mysticism, more about atmosphere and philosophy than gore. And the vibe is more like cold, haunting, atmospheric, almost ritualistic. So, like, death metal is rip your face off, black metal is summon winter demons.
I mean, this sounds very Norwegian versus American. Like, I
does.
feel like this fits with a Norwegian vibe. And I did read that, like, Mayhem, one of their first albums, I want to say, it was whatever one, like, blew up first. And it makes sense. It was really poorly produced. And then that ended up being the sound.
The sound,
like, people
yeah.
thought they did it on purpose. And it turns out they just weren't very good. But that became like, because it was so raw is how it was described. Like, they loved how sort of raw it was. And so they kept it with that. But yeah, I was just like, this is wild. Michelle.
Yes.
Now you get to pick which one of us, who the winner.
Who's the winner?
Okay, so this was very entertaining for me. And I loved like hearing the history and like the story of Mayhem is like, that's crazy. But I'm going to go with Michael only because I feel like I'm torn between whether I want that to be like a documentary on Mayhem or not, because holy crap, I would definitely watch that. But I feel like they would give metal like a really bad name. And we're finally past the whole like Marilyn Manson was ruining children thing, you know?
Yeah.
So, but that was a really cool story. I had no idea. So for that reason, I will vote Michael. But Ryan, you were a very close second place.
Was Marilyn Manson metal?
He's like glam metal rock, whatever. I don't know. Like the categories to me like blur because like it's music. I don't know how it's supposed to be creative. So to me, like by default, it's not supposed to have to fit in a box. But but he's definitely like the glam industrial,
like glam rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like not as industrial as like Nine Inch Nails, but his earlier work was much, much grittier than his newer stuff as well. Because, artists evolve,
I was going to tell you, by the way, because you went to Ozzy Fest. Ozzy Fest was a pretty important piece of actually fostering all of these branches and introducing. So it played a pretty key role through the 90s and the 2000s of actually continuing to foster the genre as well as bring new talent to the table and make people aware and continue to create these kind of branches. It's kind of
because there was always a side stage too, where like there would be smaller bands that would get out there with Ozzy, and yeah,
which is really cool. Like Ozzy, Ozzy had a heavy hand and kind of carrying it forward, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, all through his life.
All right, so what is our topic for next week?
My favorite topic that I gave to my students that they love the most too to research, and that you can go deep into this or not, is are we living in a simulation? And I had them, and they were like, yeah, and so some kids took it one way and were like, went to like different movies that like talked about like whether we're in a simulation, like The Matrix. Like I was thinking about The Matrix when I came up with the question for them, which also had a great soundtrack, by the way. And some kids like they talked about like the Spider-Man, like Spider-Verse. I don't know, the new one. I haven't watched it. My kids watched it, but I didn't watch it with
the
them.
multiverse.
But that's all about different types of And so they took it in different directions. And I read there's all really cool books about it. Like how would we know if we're living in a simulation? Like that kind of thing.
Honestly, my first thought was I can't wait to hear what Ryan says. Like Michelle, you just set Ryan up for a really, really cool episode. I almost want it to be a solo TED Talk, and I will just sit and listen and just also award you the winner.
You could like give him a couple of extra minutes if you want to, as if you're feeling generous,
Yeah.
That kind of
I'm
ends up happening
so
anyway.
excited.
So
yeah, in case you didn't notice, we're super strict on this
Yeah,
show.
I know the
Yeah,
rules
yeah.
are so important.
Well, this was great. Thank you so much.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to hear how the next one goes, so I will definitely be tuning in.